Hey everyone, welcome back to the Halandzovskyi channel. If you want to stay informed about the most critical developments around Ukraine, from diplomacy to war and global pressure, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps spread these important analyses. And now, let's dive into today's crucial update. In a recent analysis, a former US ambassador to Russia, now working as a political analyst, argued that the year-long diplomatic effort under the Trump administration has failed to bring Ukraine closer to peace. According to the former diplomat, the United States needs a fundamentally different approach, one that focuses not on concessions, but on limiting Russia's capacity to continue the war. The reasoning is straightforward. As long as Russia maintains the resources to conduct offensive operations, including troops, weaponry, logistics, and economic support, any proposed peace plan is likely to be a temporary pause rather than a lasting solution. Real leverage, he says, comes only when Moscow faces insurmountable costs on the battlefield, disrupted supply lines, damaged infrastructure, and a leadership confronted with the unsustainable burden of war. The first step outlined by the analyst involves strengthening Ukraine's military capabilities. This includes providing advanced air defense systems, long-range strike weapons, and other critical equipment to ensure that Russian forces cannot operate without significant resistance. In his view, only an overwhelming defensive capability combined with sustained pressure can bring Russia to the negotiating table on realistic terms. The second step is to separate peace talks from discussions about security guarantees. The former ambassador warns against involving Russia directly in conversations about Ukraine's long-term political, military, or economic security. Historical precedent, he notes, shows that Moscow often uses such discussions as leverage to extract territorial concessions rather than as a genuine path to stability. Third, the analyst emphasizes the importance of keeping broader US-Russia relations out of the negotiation process. Trade, energy cooperation, or economic agreements should not be used as bargaining chips. Mixing war diplomacy with wider bilateral interests, he argues, only provides Moscow with opportunities to exploit divisions among Western allies and delay meaningful negotiations. Finally, he advocates appointing a dedicated, consistent mediator, ideally the US Secretary of State or an equivalent official, to manage shuttle diplomacy between Ukraine and Russia. The former ambassador cautions that one individual cannot simultaneously act as the main interlocutor with Moscow while coordinating back-channel discussions with Kiev. Dividing these roles, he argues, preserves clarity and builds trust. In conclusion, the ex-diplomat's message is clear. Short-term measures and half-hearted diplomacy are unlikely to compel Russia to negotiate in good faith. A successful strategy, he argues, must combine robust Ukrainian military strength, firm Western resolve, separate security guarantees, and impartial, consistent mediation to create the conditions for a sustainable agreement. The former diplomat's four-step framework does more than offer policy recommendations. It underscores the significant risks of continuing on the current path. The war in Ukraine is far from frozen. Russian forces continue to strike cities, launch missiles, deploy drones, and wear down Ukrainian defenses. As long as Moscow retains military and economic flexibility, any deal negotiated under pressure could fail. If US-Russia discussions remain focused solely on a peace plan without first limiting Russia's capacity to wage war, negotiations risk being ineffective. Worse, they could provide Moscow with time to regroup, rearm, and consolidate gains, making any future conflict even more destructive. The ex-ambassador cautions that concessions without real leverage are likely to embolden President Vladimir Putin. Separating security guarantees from peace talks is particularly crucial for Ukraine. Kyiv and the wider free world cannot allow Russia to exercise a veto over its future. Bundling security assurances with negotiations or tying Ukraine's defensive support to concessions risks legitimizing occupation under the guise of peace. According to the diplomat, sustainable peace must rest on Ukrainian sovereignty, not Russian demands. Similarly, combining war-ending negotiations with broader US-Russia diplomatic or economic engagement carries dangers. Historical experience shows that when foreign policy objectives become interchangeable, stability suffers. Attempts to restore normal relations, including trade, energy cooperation, or relaxed sanctions, could reduce the Ukraine war to a transactional issue, sacrificed for short-term political or economic gains. Finally, the need for a clear, dedicated mediator highlights the fragility of current diplomacy. Without consistent and credible representation, negotiations risk collapse or being used as propaganda. Kyiv requires clarity, accountability, and reliable support, not ambiguous or symbolic engagement. Failure to adopt these principles, continuing talks without pressure, without meaningful support for Ukraine, or without separating war negotiations from broader US-Russia relations, could result in repeated ceasefires, broken agreements, and renewed aggression. For Ukraine, that would mean prolonged suffering, uncertainty, and loss. Thank you for staying with us here on the Denis Halandzovskyi channel. If you found this analysis insightful, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave your comment below. Your voice matters now more than ever. Stay alert, stay critical, and see you in the next update.